Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters Encounters video. Well, here's a pretty scary encounter involving a cryptid that I haven't talked about actually on my playlist. May even be misinterpreted as a skinwalker, but it's actually identified as something else. I thought I would share it here just to see what you guys think, see if this is truly this other type of cryptid, although I think this cryptid is more on the lines of a creepypasta, but who knows, I think maybe this is something that I may talk about in the future. But it comes from the reddit.com website, there from the subreddit called Crawler Sightings. Interesting stuff. And the user is Glass Technology 599. They titled theirs as "My best friend and I saw a crawler at my parents' house." So that's right, this particular encounter will have to do with the cryptid known as a crawler. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here, and then I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on it afterward. So here's what they state. First of all, growing up, I've dealt with paranormal things like shadow people, things moving without anyone touching them, etc. And I swear this is a legit story. So a year ago in May 2020, my parents were going on their annual trip to Florida with my three brothers for the week. My mother asked me if I could go by their house and feed the family dogs or stay and house sit. And so being the daughter that I am, I told my mother I would just stay at their house to save on gas. And so throughout the week at night, I would bring the two dogs inside to feel safer since my parents live on a somewhat back road. Keep in mind, my parents' house is surrounded by trees, and there is a thick tree line separating their house from their two neighbors. Well, one night, while I was at the house alone, I had called my best friend Bailey to come over and stay the night. We were going to do what two middle-aged 21-year-old females do when alone: play video games, watch movies, TikToks, and then drink a little. And so while Bailey and I were in the kitchen around 3 or 4 a.m. making homemade funnel cakes like the fat blanks that we were. And so the dogs kept moving around and staring at the glass kitchen door that led off to the back porch. I asked Bailey to let them out there so they could chill and we would have enough leg room while we were cooking. And so while we were eating our funnel cakes, we came across a TikTok about making homemade temporary tattoos with a printed picture and perfume. Now keep in mind, my parents have about 3.82 acres of land. So there's the family house, and then my father's two-door garage workshop, and then a large pole barn. Those two buildings are further out near the tree line. So Bailey and I walked down to the workshop to go into my parents' work office. And so I punch in the code to the garage door, and we go inside straight to the computer and then print out each other a picture of Kylo Ren to try and make it into temporary tattoos for each other. Before I go any further, a little side note: my parents have security cameras all around the property, and inside the office is a television, and above the desk it shows all of the live footage from the cameras. So while I was cutting out tattoo for Bailey, she says, "What is that?" And so I stopped looking and I stopped cutting and I look up at the cameras. At first I didn't see anything except for a small figure in front of the pole barn. It looked like it was sniffing at the garage door. And so I shrugged it off and told her it was probably one of those mini stray dogs that roam around the area. Bailey nudged my arm quickly afterwards and said and pointed to the screen again. Wanting to prove to her that it was just a stray dog, I stood up and this time looked closer to the screen. And when I did, I saw the figure, but it didn't look like one of those small dogs. Instead, this creature was hunched over on all fours. Its arms were super thin and long, but pointing outwards from its chest. Kind of like how you would imagine that bee from The Exorcism to be when she crawled on all fours. It had no fur, and its skin looked super tight on its body. And when I tell you my inner white bee went to open the door and look at it, Bailey stopped me right there when I grabbed the lock on the door. Looking back at the screen at the creature, it looked like it scratched at the door of the pole barn. I immediately said, "What the F is that?" And the creature turned its head straight at the camera. It was like a scene from The Office. And so when its head turned, I couldn't make out any clear facial features, but it looked like it had a human head with two big glowing eyes. Bailey and I screamed and it bolted, and I mean bolted straight out of the screen. And so clearly freaked out, Bailey and I hugged each other like that would protect us. And then something smashed against the garage door, not once, but twice. Like, you know what it sounds like for someone to smack a garage door with their hand? It was just like that. And so I called my grandmother and told her we thought we saw something and to stay on the phone with us until we ran back into the house. Once we got into the house, we brought all the dogs in, locked every single door, took shots of our crown until we fell asleep. And now we talk about this a few times, and I think it was a Wendigo, but Bailey thinks it was a skinwalker. But now people on Reddit are saying it was probably a crawler. Any thoughts, anyone? And then that's it. That's everything that the user Glass Technology 599 mentioned in their entry. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. First off, what type of creature is this? I was mentioning earlier that some people were saying it was a skinwalker, but it's actually something where she thinks it's a crawler, and then someone else was saying it's a actual Wendigo as well. Tough to say because all three kind of fit the same characteristics. The only thing is I've never really talked about the crawler before. I've seen it mentioned. Some people have posted it as suggestions in the past, although I believe the crawler, though, as you're seeing in this picture, isn't it more along the lines of like a creepy pasta? I think that's why I've avoided talking about it, because it just seems like it was one of those stories that was made up to make sure that it seems eerie, seems creepy, touches all the notes when it comes to being a scary type of creature, but it's just like the Slender Man and so on, like when it comes to it being a made up thing. So that's why I haven't quite touched about it. But in this case, it looks like there's a subreddit just involving crawler sightings there on reddit.com. So it may be something that I'll talk about in the future, but if there's another set of encounters, and in fact, the user Glass Technology 599 posted a follow-up as well, so I may share that here in the future. It sounds like she did have yet another encounter with this creature, and of course, this happened out there, not really in the middle of nowhere, but again, in an isolated area. She was talking about being the house being surrounded by trees, being almost 4 acres in total size. And then there was a sea of trees, like a block area of trees that just completely swallowed up that house from the neighbors. So for all intents and purposes, they might as well have been by themselves out there, so that this thing, whenever it was there inspecting that area, it knew that they were there inside that garage/barn area, and so it started inspecting them. What a creepy move too, right? When it comes to it turning to the camera, it was intelligent enough to recognize when something was either looking at it or knowing what kind of devices would cause people to be looking at it. And then that's when it realized that obviously when they're inside, that it wanted to make its presence known by slamming its hand, if you could even call it a hand, onto the actual garage door itself, the garage opener. But interesting stuff, though, when it comes to this creature being several things at once. Potential Wendigo, potential Skinwalker, or potential crawler, with the user self-identifying it as a crawler as well. But if anybody has any more info on crawlers, let me know, please. Maybe I might see them in the comments and encourage me enough to be able to talk about it again in the future, have it be something else in terms of another video. But yeah, I'd love to hear what your comments are. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.